Conservative firecracker Ann Coulter's got a beef with Canada, specifically the University of Ottawa, after they canceled her appearance this week due to protests. Protesters said she practices hate speech, but Coulter says she's being unfairly targeted because she's a conservative. With me now is conservative commentator Ann Coulter herself. Hi, Ann.
Hello, Joy.
You're in trouble again. Tell me what happened.
Well, actually, what happened? It began when King Herod demanded that all blonde conservative babies be killed. And then I was coming to Canada for a speech. Some of us escaped. And actually what I'm doing is filing a complaint with the Human Rights Commission, which keeps bringing up conservatives on hate speech laws, because I got a letter before I even set foot in Canada, threatening me with criminal prosecution if I committed a hate crime in my speech. They don't even know what my speech is about. I wasn't even in Canada yet. I've gotten hate mail before, but not for things I hadn't done yet. So having read the provost's description of what is a criminal speech act in Canada, I realized I had just been the victim of a hate crime.
Well, Republicans are always talking about personal responsibility. So do you take any responsibility for being canceled at all? No. I was invited to give a speech, and I never even made it to the building because actually it turns out they weren't all protesters. There were around 2,000 people around the building. A few hundred of them were protesters, right. And they were knocking over they were knocking over tables, and they pulled the fire alarm. They wouldn't let people in or out, and the cops said, we can't let this proceed. So, all right. No, I do not take responsibility for that. I was drinking coffee at some club. Okay, well, let's listen to what you said, okay? Listen.
As a 17-year-old student of this university, Muslim, should I be converted to Christianity? Second of all, since I don't have a magic carpet, what other hopes do you suggest?
This shows, I thought it was just, American public schools that produced ignorant people. What mode of transportation? Take a camel.
Okay. Now,
it will not surprise you to learn, Joy, that this is a completely deceptive quote that has been disseminated. There are 10 minutes cut out between her question and what I said. I was responding to the hecklers. I wasn't responding to her, by the way. I started to give her what I think was an electrifying and very historic but serious and somber answer to her question.
Sure.
I was going through the quotes she's pulled out for the last 10 years. No, seriously, I was. I'm snotty with liberals on TV, but not with just some student, even though she was being.
But why do you have to say?
But I started to answer her seriously, and they started heckling, and I counter-heckled, and it was a good counter-heckle. But to cut out the 10 minutes in between,
Ann,
is utterly deceptive and dishonest.
But why do you have to say, take a camel in that sarcastic manner, or use words like?
Why do they have to interrupt?
Why do you do that?
Why do they?
You're so smart. You're a smart girl, which is why you're on my show. And yet you use these very, very, volatile words, things that really go to the lowest level of social intercourse. Why do you do that?
I totally disagree, and I think you are the last person to make that point if we went through each one of these in their full, lush context. Because you're a funny gal, Joy. You can see that comedy is harder than having a political opinion.
Yes.
Obviously, a lot of what I say are what's known as jokes. And you mentioned the joke about John Edwards. Look, I'm not a humor specialist the way you are, but there were 7,000 people in the room, and they roared with that. When 7,000 people laugh, it was funny. And by the way, now that we know a little bit more about John Edwards and his wife, I think I was proved right on that one. Here, like I say, if this was such a bad thing, show the whole thing. But that's the clip going around.
How are you proved right on John Edwards by calling him a f***it? What was the point of that? Why do you call him that?
I didn't call him a...
What did you say?
I insinuated. I do recommend liberals coming to my speeches because I give a fantastic speech. And in that speech I just gone through, this was back in 2007, I guess, when Hillary and Obama, maybe it was the beginning of 2008, but anyway, it was Hillary, Obama, and Edwards running for president. I've had some jokes about Obama, had some jokes about Hillary. This was just a CPAC. It wasn't a more serious speech. And then to conclude the speech, I said, and I had a few things to say about John Edwards. Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention. This is in the middle of the whole Isaiah Washington thing. He had just, back and forth. He goes into rehab for calling a fellow actor a So I said I had some remarks about John Edwards, but it turns out I can't make them because if you use the word you go into rehab.
And you're starting to babble. You're losing me.
Used by little kids.
You're losing.
Okay, if you're going to ask me to explain a joke, you're going to be bored to death.
But
if
you know
want
what?
a joke, I'll give you a joke, but then don't go back and say, oh, I don't understand the joke.
But listen, Ann, you're not a comedian. Maybe you shouldn't do that type of thing. Leave it to the professionals.
When 7,000 people laugh, it was funny.
You know, you are your best audience. All right, stay right there. We'll have some more with you in a minute because I can't get enough of this woman. I'm back with conservative commentator Ann Coulter. Now, you know, Ann, I have to tell you, Anthony Weiner had some white powder sent to his house with a threatening letter. And, you know, Louise Slaughter had a brick thrown into her storefront. Stupak is getting threats. People are putting coffins on Democrats' lawns. This kind of hate speech that's going on right now has to stop.
I wouldn't bring it up, except that it happened, you know, 2 nights ago here. Yeah, okay, and 200 kids were bringing rocks and sticks to a speech of mine. And I've gotten white powder, and I've been attacked on my property. You don't hear conservatives whining about it all the time. A liberal gets one piece of hate mail, and suddenly Paul Krugman is blubbering on the op-ed page of the New York Times. That's why, by the way, I mean, the only thing responsible people can do, responsible people on air, responsible elected officials, is to try to give public figures some privacy. In a country of 300 million people, there are going to be some crazy people out there. And I note that it has become a passion of people on a different cable network to reveal the addresses of conservatives.
Well, we don't like,
but that's the problem. On property.
But that is the problem with hate speech. It begets other hate speech, and you know we can have.
No, but
I'm
saying they're going to be crazy people. You have responsible liberals, allegedly responsible adult liberals out there trying to get conservatives attacked.
Oh, come on.
This guy, Francois.
Most of the hate speech is directed towards liberals, and you know it right now. You have a case maybe in the 60s. In the 60s, you have a case.
Madness.
That is, listen, and speaking of whining,
Joy,
Eric Cantor's been whining about how he got in trouble. Somebody had a bullet shot through his head, or through his house, by the way. Yeah, he's whining too, so they whine on the right also.
You or Anthony Weiner could show up at the Republican National Convention. You could show up at the University of Mississippi. You could show up at Bob Jones University, and you wouldn't need a bodyguard. There is not a conservative in America who can go to a college campus in America without a bodyguard.
Listen.
Do not tell me that this is a bigger problem for liberals. It's not even equal.
It's a totally bigger problem
madness.
for liberals.
We just don't whine.
The fact that they're sending hate mail and threatening Bart Stupak is a big problem. But, you know, let me tell you something.
I'll put my hate mail up against his any day.
Okay, just FYI, I guess last night Glenn Beck, your friend Glenn Beck, that other nut job, he unveiled the I Hate Glenn Beck Club, and guess who's a member?
You?
Me. I'm so excited. This is like being on Nixon's enemies list.
Congratulations.
I'm so happy. You can't even imagine. But he skipped Whoopi, Al Gore, he skipped Stephen King. You know, he skipped a lot of people, but I'm so privileged to be on that list.
You got to put that next to your Costco club card.
Okay. And thanks. Always a pleasure. Back in a minute.